Today, what we're basically gonna do is design a sublimation ribbon using assets that we've used before to create other ribbons, so not to have this tutorial extend way beyond the length of time it should be, because sometimes these things take like hours depending on the kind of detail you're going for and looking for assets to use in the creation of these ribbons. So if you want a detail of step by step, or you want to see exactly what I've done step by step, you can always mute the audio and have the video play in 0.5 speed, meaning half the speed that it's being played now, because it's time lapse multiplied by 200, so it's twice the speed it should be. So let's take it from there, and I'm gonna be voicing over the audio time-lapse fashion. So first of all, we're gonna save the file name to the appropriate file, just in case anything we have a saved version. What I'm doing here, I'm making a copy and putting it in a vertical fashion so I can follow exactly what I'm doing. As you can see here, I'm changing the colors of the edges of the ribbon with a linear gradient from red to white back to red. Now I'm going back to the vertical file, and now I'm copying the image and placing it on a copy of that file. As you can see, it's generating a symbol in each one of the files, and then so now I'm moving back to the horizontal files and them so I can edit it appropriately. And as you can see, I'm changing the orientation, meaning that the pre-made template is gonna be a mass, so it falls within the ribbon confine. And I usually change it to chroma key green and also lower the opacity to 25%. Now you can see me adjusting the image on the horizontal so it falls within the pix area. Now I'm gonna copy a dove from the t-shirt design and pasting it on the ribbon design. And I'm adjusting the dove so it falls within the template, if you look, and adjusting the blur because the blur is a little too much for the design. Now here I'm gonna add the name of the person, the deceased, rest in peace. I'm gonna copy it and paste it to the file. And if you look now, I'm gonna copy the filters that I use just so that they can be similar to the memorial t-shirt design. Because the ribbon design is a lot smaller, the text, I'm gonna have to adjust the glow, the drop shadow, and so forth. If you look, I'm playing with the different percentage and the amount of drop shadow or glow until I find a look I like. Here, I'm going to open another ribbon that I did so I can pull from that ribbon so I can use in this one. I'm pulling the In Love in Memory portion of this ribbon. Sometimes it's hard for me to locate which is which. As you can see now, I'm gonna play with the colors because this one was done in a hot pink, so I'm gonna change the color to a more appropriate for this design. I tried out the purple, but I noticed I didn't like it, and I went and saw that I did a red header for the same file, so I went and changed that text to red. Now I'm the offset. I'm playing with the colors till I find an appropriate color that would match the ribbon. I kinda like the blue, but the blue was a little too bright, so I tried just using different kind of blues till I found the one that I prefer. Then I'm gonna adjust the size so that can fall how I want it. And go back to the dove from this design also. Now I go back to the memorial ribbon that I did for Dean. If you look, I'm adjusting the size and the layout in the vertical one because how it looks in the vertical will tell you a lot how the final ribbon would look if you were to look on it face forward. If you look, I adjusted the blur also, well, the glow blur, and now I'm gonna position the doves appropriately behind the subject, so as to make sure it fall within the bleed marks. If you look, I'm constantly going back and forth, adjusting them appropriately, because if anything, and I'm gonna have them cut off, I want at most, at least, most of the dove would be in that category. Now, I go back to the memorial ribbon that I did for Janet, and I copy the mask that was used so I can have an idea of the confine of the ribbon, the edges, and I replace the mask that I used for Dean. I also copied the cloud and put it at the bottom of the design for Dean so it could have masked the cut of the picture. So not to have just a plain cut off, so it looks like he's floating in the cloud. If you look, I adjusted the cloud a bit more, and then I adjust him down, and I think at this point I decided to add another dove to the design. But instead of behind of him, I'm gonna add the dove in front of him so as to still hide the fact that the end of his photo is cut off at the edge. If you look, the dove is way beyond the cut off line, so I tried to adjust it up a bit. If you notice, I'm moving it around a lot and checking the reference guidelines and see how it looks. Now, I go and copy that cloud that was used in the back behind Janet and also paste that at the back of Dean and remove the doves. I'm adjusting the cloud behind because each image is unique, so I would have to play with like blending mode, alpha channels and different other stuff. Now, checking the position of the doves to see if I like the placement and the size of each. Then here, I flipped it around to see if it would have looked a little bit better, but because of how the image is set out, I didn't like that look, so I just undo that change. Now I decided to add a fifth dove and try to add like a smaller one in the background, so it looks like a dove in the distance. Now I'm gonna play with the in love and memory and try to have it positioned correctly. Then what I did here was copy the font that I use and paste it in place so it falls right on the name. And I'm adjusting the position while still looking at the reference at the bottom to kind of gauge where the text would fall on the ribbon. If you look out now, I'm playing with the glow and the drop shadow until I find something appropriate. I went with the blue since I did a glow of a shade of blue around the in love and memory. Here I'm still playing around with the glue until I finally settle with this one. Then I went and copied the date. If you look, I tried to paste the date, and because when you copy it, normally would paste it exactly how you copy it from the other one, so I had to put it in a notepad so as to get the sizing of the font of the one that I'm pasting into. Then I'm here adjusting the placement of the sunrise and the sunset so that it looks a lot better with the new dates inputted. Well, I'm here also just looking over the ribbon, both from the vertical and also the horizontal position. When I looked at the ribbon, although it kind of looked finished to me, something felt missing. So if you look, I used the dove instead of using the clouds like in the design for Janet. I just add a dove in between these texts. and adjusted the text a bit so it falls within the bleed lines. I closed the journal because I no longer need any assets from it, but I went and made an alternate version of that particular file. Then I went and opened another sublimation ribbon that I did because the memorial design had like the gate feature. I wanted to implement the gate feature. But when I tried it, it wasn't falling how I wanted it to fall, so I just decided to use like the green grass beyond the gates so it looked more like paradise in the background of the loving memory. So if you look now, I renamed that layer to paradise and pasted it in place. Then I tried adjusting so as the linear gradient would look like everything is blended in one. I also aligned it to the center, but I noticed because it's how it transitioned, the centering would not look as centered as how I wanted. So I started to actually center it by myself using the arrow keys. And then I tried a few blending modes. Now, I noticed that this had ghosts and I was wondering why it keeps ghosting. Every time I move the object, it decides to ghost, and to fix that, I had to put it beyond the mask so it only focused on the object that I had in front of me. Basically, this will conclude part 1 of designing a sublimation ribbon. You can stay tuned for part 2 where I would go over printing the ribbons. Also, in that video, I would be showing you how to place the ribbons on the printed images, and also in that final video, I'll show you temperatures used to print the ribbons, print settings, also techniques to, well, the cut line is already there, so you can follow the cut line to cut the ribbon. And finally, I'll show you how to fold the ribbons so they would be perfectly fold, and also techniques on how to glue these ribbons together. So stay tuned.